So thank you so much for joining us tonight on our second ever interview with a dominatrix. And the question I am asking everybody is, why did you become a dominatrix?
I got into kink. I did the submissive bottom thing for a while. I had a partner who had interest in bottoming, so I did that, and I was really, really good at it. Even before I had, really had much experience. So I explored it more for the first, while, and I had multiple people tell me to go pro. Really is what it came down to. I had like 2 or 3 people tell me that I should be professional. And so I did the market research and looked in my area to see what was going on. And there just wasn't much here. So not only did I think it would be fun, but I could see that there was a pretty big hole in this area, and that there was maybe 2 other girls doing it. One of which was, had obviously been established and been around for a lot longer, and the other one was younger like me. And I just felt like there was an opening for it, so I just went for it basically after, doing it unprofessionally for probably a year.
Wow. Do you know the other girls that are in your area that do it as well?
I briefly met one of them, but we don't really come together as a community here. There's not that many of us, and we're all kind of just doing our own thing. And I'm terrible at group politics anyways, to be honest. So I'm just as fine to just do my own thing too. So
awesome. I totally 120 million% understand. So is this your full-time gig?
It is, yeah. Sometimes I take side work just for the fun of it, to get me out of the house, doing some other things. But I have been full pursuing this for, I think I've been doing this now for 6 years, and I've had a dungeon for 5 of those. So it's my main squeeze.
That's awesome. What's side work for a dom?
You don't tell people you're a dom when you're doing side work,
Gotcha. That stays at home. So it's like,
yeah.
I'll pour drinks, I'll get people ice cream, but the dom thing.
Need to know basis.
Gotcha. So what were you doing before you started doing this?
I was a nanny, which is not that different. Minus the, obviously nannies don't use corporal punishment anymore, but aside from that, the boundary setting, guiding, nurturing, instructing, all of that is extremely similar.
Yeah, treating men like children.
What to do?
What you gotta do. So you were told you were really good at it, so I guess it felt right to you as well, and you were just like, yeah, maybe I should. So when does a dominatrix decide to build her dungeon?
When an opportunity falls in her lap, when the universe says so, basically. A lot of doms have to really scrape and, work their little butts off to get their studios, and I commend them for doing that. But I just happened to become friends with the right person at the right time. I was modeling for a long time before I was a dom. I made a connection with a photographer who happened to be a BDSM master and have a space, and he and I were shooting together. We got along really well, and so we decided to have an exclusive rental agreement. And he's like one of my longest friends now. So but I don't know if I would have done that had the universe not dropped it in my lap and said, you should do this. So
That's awesome. Did you got a full dungeon right off the bat? You didn't start with like one thing and then go to
No, I worked for a year without a dungeon, doing, hotel sessions like most girls do when they start out and stuff. And I thought that was fine. Honestly, when you're beginning, when you're a newbie, that's fine. You aren't ready to get crazy with any of the stuff that a dungeon really provides at that time. I don't really live anywhere close enough to have gone and rented a dungeon or to have gotten in with a dungeon like group of girls. So it was just the only option at the time was to do hotel sessions, which were fun. They're more casual, and there's less pressure, and it's just a lot, of I just found that environment to be more casual. But I was happy when I got my studio and had my own space, and mostly for tie down points, because hotels have gotten really hard to do that with. They used to have legs on the beds, and they don't do that anymore. And you just don't know what do you tie it to, the nightstand, like, I don't know. I think I was like, they had like wall lamps for a while, and so I was like tying people to like the wall lamps. And I love bondage so much. I wanted to do so much more with it. And so that was one of the big things, besides having room to swing something, that I was really happy to have a studio. And then, of course, a lot of years later, I got into medical play and needle play and stuff. And those absolutely have to be done at a studio, that you have leather and sterile environment and all of that. So.
Awesome. I would have loved to have heard that phone call. Like, do you have sconces?
You don't ask.
You don't ask.
I used cuffs for a long time, I think I had like a bag and, a go-to bag, and you start small, you learn to do a lot with a little. And then once I had a space, then I became like the toy queen, and I just had all the stuff. So.
What's your favorite toy to use on one of your submissives?
Hard to choose. Anything I choose is going to be painful, though, because sadism is one of my big things. It's probably a tie between a cane, or I have a piece that goes on my violet wand that goes on my arm, and it makes my touch electric, which I just really love, because then I can feel it and they can feel it. And it's like, our connection is electric. I don't know. There's like some irony there that I really appreciate.
That's awesome. Well, I've heard you mention in other interviews that you're a sadomasochist, right?
Correct. I do both sides of that coin, which is partially why I'm really good at what I do.
Do you feel like you've achieved most of your goals as a professional dom? And then where do you want to take it if you feel like you have?
That's a hard question, because COVID has really set everything back. I feel like I'm starting over almost. I know it's just a temporary feeling, and as things pick back up, I won't feel like that anymore. But right now, I just want to go back to normal. I just want to go back to doing what I was doing with the schedule I had, and the amount of, I had the perfect number of clients and stuff. And now everybody's honestly too scared to come in for the most part. I don't blame them at all, but I miss my routine. I particularly focus on long-term dynamics. I don't do a lot of one-offs, and I work really hard on those connections with people and building up to push those boundaries, which is one of the things I really love doing. And I've lost a lot of that with the restrictions and everything. And it's sad. I miss it. I have a person who's a domestic person that hasn't been able to come by in a year, and they would probably come by every week before that. And, losing those connections and friendships has been really hard. And so really right now, my goal is just to go back and try to, when things go back to normal, try to salvage what I can out of those, basically. And I've done a lot. I've done DomCon LA a couple of years. I'm doing full mummifications now. Most of the stuff that I've wanted to try, I've gotten to do. I have a bubble wrap mummification that I haven't done that I want to do. Sort of pinata style where you wrap them up and then beat them with stuff and make the bubbles pop. That would be really fun. It's not going to hurt them, but it would be, it would be interesting. So I have some stuff I'd like to try, but the focus right now is, getting back to where we were pre-COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, that got in the way of a lot of people's goals. A lot of goals got shifted. Do you have a live-in sub, or did those things change too when COVID happened?
No, I have a live-in sub. I live with my switch husband and my live-in trans sub. And so that I at least have that still, and I still work on those dynamics, and that's, been really helpful. I know a lot of people lost everything, and I was, obviously able to keep those things. So I consider myself lucky on that front. Yeah.
That's awesome. Did you have a sub first or a husband first?
Well, I had a husband before I had a live-in sub. So yeah, I met my husband 4 years ago, roughly, and I was already a pro dom. And I don't generally tell people when I start dating them. I wait till the first date, and then I just lay it on them. And if the cards fall where the cards fall. And I just told him that that's what I did, and I loved my work. And, if that wasn't something he was on board with, we shouldn't even try to date, And then a few years down the road, I met my live-in. He served me exclusively as a client for well over a year, went above and beyond in every way he could for that whole time. He didn't anticipate things going the way they did. I'm a really big on listening to what the universe is telling you to do. And if you had asked me before, well, are you going to be poly, essentially, I would have said, no, that doesn't actually work. That works short term. It doesn't work long term. I'm good. And the universe was like, no, this is important. You need to do this. And I listened. We did it on a trial basis. And it went really, really well, shockingly well. And we've been doing it ever since. I think we have been all living together now for almost 2 years.
Awesome. See, we can all be together. Yeah. When he became your sub, did you have to teach him? I've heard you say, or I've heard the word sissify. Did you do that with him? And then what are some rules to live by when teaching someone how to be a sub?
I did sissify. I like to really feel out each person. I don't do the same things with each people. I may do the same fetish, but I'll do it very differently from one person to the other. We did a lot of bondage initially. We did some sissification, and then it became apparent to me that they weren't a sissy, they were a trans instead. And so we worked on that. And as far as rules to live by when teaching subs is, have realistic expectations. If you're not teaching them, you can't hold them responsible for doing it wrong. I don't generally discipline for a first offense. I have, but it's pretty uncommon. I give a warning, and then I come down like a motherfucker. But and my live-in is really good about this. I almost never have to actually discipline her. A warning is more than enough usually. I can only think of one time I jumped straight to a punishment because I thought the offense deserved it. But, with great power comes great responsibility, and my household is a place of grace, and we all work together to give each other grace, and I think that's really important. So I have high expectations, but I try to do it in a reasonable way.
Sounds very fair.
Yeah.
Are you in your dungeon right now?
I'm in the home studio. So this is where I film. This is where I have my home sessions. We have this new edition that I have been showing off in all of my videos. So yeah, I don't want to drive out every time I have to film. I do much too much of it to have to do that. I did used to film at the studio, but now I primarily film here at the house.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I love your films. They're so much fun. You're a educator. What do you like to educate about? And then do you have any upcoming classes or events that everyone should know about so that we can learn all the wonderful things that you have to teach us?
I'm a new educator. I have been doing it for 6 years, 7, if you count my unprofessional experience. And I think I'm just getting to the point where I can start teaching people. Honestly, I like to keep my mouth shut for a long time because, you know, the women who are teaching are, you know, have been doing this for 20 years and, you know, have a lot more clout and a base and, you know, various things. But I have been taking women on one-on-one, which is my favorite. I think it's easier to just personalize for each person, basically figure out where their weak points are and help them bolster those areas. So a lot of times that can be marketing or, you know, where do I advertise for myself or what do I need in my tool bag? And so I have taught a few classes, but primarily I like to work one-on-one with women, come up with a price that works for them, and, you know, just kind of help boost them along the way.
You teach them how to be dominatrix, or you teach them how to be a sub, or both, or imagination is endless?
I teach them how to be doms, primarily pro doms, because it's a lot. We are generally our own photographers, our own videographers, our own marketing people, our own, like we do everything. And when you start out, it is a lot. It is a lot. And often information on what you should be doing is hard to come by because as the market gets more saturated, women don't want to share what they're doing. So I like working with, I agree with that. I understand why people do that. So I generally work online with women who are not part of, I'm not training my competition that way, you know? So I'll have somebody online come up to me and be like, you know, I don't know how to do this around my schedule. And I sit down and, you know, I had a woman whose schedule was just really difficult. So I got her into Night Flirt. And I was like, dude, just set up the thing on Night Flirt. You don't have to have your makeup done. You just go on, be a bossy bitch, tell them what to do, and that's fucking great, you know? And so it's things like that. Like I know of a lot of things, even if I choose not to use it, although I do use Night Flirt quite a lot. I know of things, and so I'll just kind of point them in the right direction, which helps a lot. So.
Oh yeah, there's so much out there and so much wrong information out there and so many weird, horrible people that aren't looking out for you, that are trying to get you to come into the Leia, if you will. So it's really nice to know that there are people out there, especially women, to kind of conjure out that bad boss bitch from other women so that they can do what they want to do and have fun doing it. And that's awesome.
Yeah. I don't find that these women usually need help actually dominating. Awesome. They don't actually need help learning how to spank somebody. What they need is help with their business usually. And that I'm very good at.
Awesome. And I'm sure it's not easy starting a business like this with all the different misunderstandings that could follow that idea. What do you find are some of the biggest misunderstandings from people who want to start out being a dom?
The common one that I hear is, oh, I just want to be paid to beat people. That sounds like fun. Let's do that. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like maybe 5% of my clientele are into heavy sadism. The rest are not. They do a little bit, but they don't do a lot. And that's not even in-person sessions are only maybe about 20% of my workload. It is the icing on the cake. The goal of the experience is to have in-person sessions or online sessions, but the majority of my time is spent marketing myself, being on sites. Am I on this site? You know, have I checked in? It's really easy to, you know, realize you left some guy messaged you like 2 weeks ago on this site that you never go on, you know, and be like, well, that was an opportunity lost, because you just never know. But I believe that I should have at least a small presence on every site possible, because you just never know who will see you and take an interest. I've had sites that I've used and I only ever got one person off of it, but that one person was worth every minute I spent setting that site up.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's really important to know. I get a lot of girls asking me like, I just need to make money quick. Doesn't sex sell? And I'm like,
No.
well, you have to put yourself out there first. They don't know what you're selling until you put yourself out there. So what are some of your favorite websites, or where can we find you to see some of your best work, favorite work?
I want clips a lot. I'm on you know, Fetish Model Network. That's a new one that I've been working on a lot lately. I'm on OnlyFans. I try to have a presence everywhere. I spend a lot of time on Night Flirt. Night Flirt, even though the traffic overall is dropping on Night Flirt has still consistently been one of my best money makers out there, period. Not for in-person wins always, but as far as online work goes, Night Flirt has always done really well for me. And I think that's due to your ability to actually boost yourself on the site. A lot of sites, you just end up in a pile of gobbledygook and you never get seen, and it's really sad.
Oh no, gobbledygook.
Yeah. And so Night Flirt has this bidding feature that allows you to push yourself up on days that you're being active on that site, which really helps you get seen and bring in those big clients. I had somebody who used to call me on that site 3 times a week for 9 months. I mean, think about how much money that is, you know?
Oh wow.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. And then that of course always can lead to who knows what, you know, your next live-in. You never know.
No, I'm full. I'm good. 2 people to look after is enough for me. But you know, they may be your next in-person client. You don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Hedrick, do you have any questions for Miss Chloe Rose? Yes. How do you handle subs who misbehave or are not like professional? So I guess if you have someone come in who's like wilding out and you're like, dude, what are you doing? How do you handle something like that?
Well, first you want to screen everybody. Your screening process is a really big step of your business that will save you an enormous headache down the road. So first of all, I screen out most people like that. I don't see them. But if somebody does, generally you have a chat with them and you have an open discussion about their behavior and what part of it you do not like. Most people are just being thoughtless. They don't realize that you don't appreciate what they're doing. And that might be a compatibility issue, which can happen when you're doing prodomme versus relationship doming. Compatibility is not always a perfect fit. And so if you guys can't come together on some common ground, you're just going to have to decide that this is not for the two of you. You both need to just, find something else. And then, if they don't listen, you dismiss them. You don't give people like that chances. You give them one chance. And if they don't amend it, you give them the boot. Because if you don't, you'll regret it. You will 100% regret it. The emotional labor and stuff is not worth it. And you run the risk of losing your temper, which is something you really should never do as a professional dom.
Awesome. Well, that's really good advice. Thank you. It sounds like a lot of communication, just like everything else.
It's true. You have to fill out a form to see me and tribute. And then I meet you for coffee. And then if I like you, then you fill out a stack of paperwork for me. And then you get to play with me. And so all of those steps put together equals a much higher rate of successful first sessions.
Wow, you sound like you have a super awesome, legit business going. And I don't think anybody realizes those things go into this type of work, professional dominatrix work.
Yeah.
So, wow. Is there anything else you would like to share with us? Any upcoming classes? Any dreams?
The only thing I feel like my situation is lacking is I would really like to find a switch girl maybe, or a sub girl, but either a sub masochist girl or a switch girl in the area that I'm very compatible with for filming. It's extremely hard to find, and I don't live in like the biggest area, so it's hard. But I would love to do more of that. Because it's very different with women, men are different, trans are different, women are different. And so I just feel like that would round out what I'm doing more. But I don't live near anybody cool, honestly. Like everybody that I'm like, oh, she'd be so fun. They usually live in like Wisconsin or like New York or something. So I just sit over here and be like, oh, well, someday it's okay.
The universe will send you her.
Yes.
She's coming. She's coming. That is what this interview is hopefully going to do for you. You brought us education, and we got to know about you as a professional, and now the universe, this interview will send you your perfect switch or sub, but preferably switch female. Lovely.
Yeah, manifesting it
around you. She's going to move next door tomorrow. How cool would that be? Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us and being our interview with the mostess. It's like the hostess with the mostess, but I couldn't think of something that rhymes. And let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Awesome. It was good to see you. And I'm glad our hair matches. We didn't even. Yeah. Happy meetings.
Okay, have fun.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.